For me, coming out is like unpeeling an onion. You start out figuring out who you are for yourself, and then it's a process of revealing to one person after another who you are, gradually becoming more and more transparent.
I realized that I was different probably around 14, 15.
I knew when I was 4. I told my mom, and I got punished quite a lot.
Well, I came out to my sister and my brother, and both of them were like, yeah, duh.
For the 50 years when I was pretending to be the man I never was, I always felt bitter and resentful and angry. But once I came out, I found that the further along I went, the more comfortable I felt.
I first came to understand that I was probably gay as a 5-year-old child.
Deciding to come out was something that I needed to do for myself and my health.
You'll notice I don't have a lot of teeth because I got beat up 4 different times in this town.
I had a pretty easy time with feeling accepted for my identity and not feeling any pressure to sort of conform to certain things or behave in certain ways, which I really appreciate.
I grew up in an era where being trans, wearing, in my case, women's clothing was illegal. When my parents discovered it, my father especially raked me over the emotional coals and made me feel very, very guilty and shameful. And that stayed with me until my 50s.
And I came out to people like slowly, right? I was really worried about what people would think. And so you choose 1 or 2 people that you trust, and it would kind of build from there. Coming out in high school was not an option for me in rural Alberta. And so I kind of had to move away to university first. I think that's true for like a lot of people.
In terms of really coming out, that did not happen until I joined the University of Waterloo queer group. And in the process of doing that, I heard all sorts of coming out stories, some of them really positive and some of them absolutely dreadful, where people were disowned and that kind of thing.
When I had to hide when I was younger, it took a toll. I didn't feel like I was actually myself. I was putting myself out there so that I could fit the boxes that society had for a girl, and it was hard.
I started to realize what being transgender actually meant and what it meant for me, and started questioning gender stuff and kind of piecing together a lot, and realized that I wasn't a woman and that I was transgender. And so that sort of led to a second coming out. And so legally changed my name, socially transitioned, accessed what I wanted to in terms of medical care. And everyone was supportive, and no one was surprised.
There is so much uncertainty to it. You absolutely do not know how people are going to respond to this disclosure. People who you think will be totally okay with it are not. People who you think are not going to be okay are.
Most people have many coming outs, and that's normal.
Come out when you're ready. No one should be forcing you to tell your story when you're not ready to tell your story.
The idea that there are kids now who are 4 years old who can declare themselves, and their parents will say, okay, and their schools will say, okay, these are all things that are true now. That's miraculous, right? That was my dream growing up. And it was impossible then. Impossible.
I have to say, the way it is now, it's somewhat simpler than it used to be. But that said, I still see that there are a lot of people who go through absolute hell when they're coming out, and they need a lot of support.
If you know a queer kid and they're not being supported by their family, you support them. You use their pronouns. You respect what they are, who they are. Because one person can make that much of a difference.
Everyone is just trying to be happy.
Living as yourself is the best gift you can ever give yourself. When I transitioned, I lost everything. But it was still the single best decision I've ever made.
everybody has a gender identity, that everybody has a sexuality, that we're allowed to be ourselves. It's important to be ourselves. When we allow people to be themselves and take up space, that's when we can be at our healthiest and at our best. I think labels are not boxes to put people in, but they're words to get inside feelings out. So I can communicate what this means and feels to me, so you can get it and understand, and we can talk about it and feel about it.
We just want to live our lives being ourselves. I'm not a weirdo. I'm not a threat. I'm not a pervert. I'm not some deviant. I am just a human being wanting to live my life in peace and fulfillment, contentment, and joy.